Hello, thank you for joining us today as we embark on our first episode to our new podcast. My name is Star, and I'm here with my friend NoTea,
So,
and we will be discussing our new podcast, Critics, Writers, and Weebs.
this
Nick
is a long
or
time in
NoTea,
making.
would you like to talk about what we'll be discussing today?
Uh, this is gonna be a fun one.
Yeah.
Harems. Some love them, some hate them. A lot of people really don't like them. Well, we are to discuss what makes an actual good harem.
Yeah, and in doing so, we'll discover, well, what makes a bad harem, I guess.
So, as our resident harem enjoyer, do you want to start?
Yeah, before we do cover that topic, I'd like to just go over a little bit of an introduction for many people. This is going to be the first time tuning in to us, listening to how we talk and what we really stand for when it comes to anime. So I want to give our viewers just a general feel of, how we interpret things and
Yeah.
maybe movies and other films because this is not going to be limited to just anime. We're going to be talking about films, and we have a lot of topics that we want to cover from films as well as just writing in general. So it's not going to be limited to just one anime media source.
Yeah.
And so for a overall introduction, how would you say you got into anime, Noti? What that's going to be my question for you. What really was the inspiration for you to get into anime?
So, I didn't really grow up with anime. I kind of I knew what it was. I saw like Pokemon and Ghibli and stuff like that, but I never engaged with it all that much until I was about 17 years old when I was at a summer camp. Forgot to bring stuff to read because I was an idiot. And one of my
Hey, we
friends
all make mistakes, but
and one of my friends had brought the entirety of the Full Metal Alchemist manga from his local library.
what a
So
start. What a start. Full Metal Alchemist? Yeah.
so I just sat down, read the entire thing, got kind of obsessed. And then it all just snowballed from there until I am this.
The Avalanche. Yeah, absolutely. See, me, I stand on probably the opposite end of the spectrum. I've been watching anime, consuming manga related media since I was 3 years old. I was a little kid. It was the first thing I remember watching, starting with Sailor Moon, old VHS tapes, believe it or not,
Damn,
is
you're old.
how I started my journey. And it has been a wonderful, long, over 2 decades now, over 2 decades of watching anime. So I have a lot of built up passion and history over the years, and I've been in the community for a very long time. So this is finally something I'm excited to bring to everyone as a kind of a seasoned veteran in the anime community.
Yeah, I'm kind of a. In terms of years, I'm a rookie, but in terms of my heart, I'm among the most seasoned veterans.
And you can take it from me, you truly are a seasoned veteran as far as anime consumption. Yeah, and did you have a question you'd like to ask me?
What was that?
Did you have a question you would like to ask me in regards same kind of concept, the introduction question?
Not entirely, but that's because we have talked a lot about this stuff already, so I kind of already know most of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, quite all right. All right. Um, so this is as good a point as any to really get into our topic today. So,
Yes.
Noti, you came up with this topic, so why don't you explain a little bit as to why you came up with the specific topic we'll be talking about today?
Uh, so, I always appreciate with discussions different viewpoints, and there's kind of few, when we talk a lot, we usually come to a lot of the same points, but with this genre in particular, we have different, very different feelings about it. So I am curious what if we are going to be able to come to any sort of common ground with this.
Yeah, it does kind of make me think a lot because we will later find this out, but I do particularly enjoy harem animes, both reverse harem, regular harem. comedy, drama, I usually enjoy them to a degree. There's something I can gain from each of them. That doesn't necessarily make me believe that they're good,
Yeah.
but I like to recognize good elements in each. Um, and so you could say I'm a harem apologizer, but some of my favorite series are harems, including two of which are in my top 10. So
I've
something to be considered.
yeah, I've had like two harem series that I could say I unironically enjoyed, and that's
Oh
about
yeah,
it.
see, and yeah, and so this is going to be very different of opinions that hopefully we can draw some of the same conclusions as to what would make a good harem.
Yeah. So, anything? I think you have far more harem experience than I do. So, is there anything you want to start off with saying?
Uh, First of all, what I believe the most important part to a harem is the harem, right? I mean, let's face it. If we're not rooting for the main character to choose one of these characters, then why would we watch the series at all? I mean, that's just going to be the end of the day. Is there needs to be at least two or three interesting choices for the main character in a harem, or maybe we should define a harem series before we really get into this.
I always defined a harem as it's like a romance series, but there's at least three like character relationship options, and the focus of the series is on that.
The
Not like a
relationship.
series where some isekai power fantasy thing where there's a paramount to the side of it. No, like the harem, the relationships are all the central point of it. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, specifically the series that are harem anime, not anime with a harem in it, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. And specifically on the harem part, it's the idea that there are at least three uh, romance interests of the main character, and that could be they have the male, female, regardless of gender.
Yeah,
This is just I am judging them as the genre harem. So that's where I'm
yeah,
coming from when I say this. So yeah, getting back into what I was saying about there being particularly there has to be at least, in my opinion, at least two really good girls slash boys for this genre to work.
yeah. I wrote down like a list of notes of things to like things to do to make your harem interesting, and one of them is literally just make your characters and their relationships interesting. Cause
Yeah, and I
it
mean that's
just
another thing connected to those. Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead,
it's like
go ahead.
it seems like such a basic thing that you shouldn't have to say, but you would be surprised.
Exactly. There are so many series that will be released, and there is not one interesting character in it. And I'll get into late. I have a later point I want to make, but as far as like just the romance interests, if you at least have two relatively interesting characters, you have this connection. You want one of them to win most likely. And there are a lot of series which will have one really good choice, or if we're lucky, one very solid option and one relatively weak op or relatively strong option. But if you don't have, quality characters for the main character to fall in love with, you're no one's gonna want to watch the series, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to add
Yeah,
on anything to that?
it's kind of like a thing I see with like a lot of like harem series where there's one option that is very obvious what the main character is gonna go with, but then there's always like they always like tack on a couple more afterwards, and it just feels like, and it just feels very weird because we kind of know they're not gonna win, but we still spend a lot of time on them, and it just feels like we're not dividing our time properly. Now, you're gonna do the harem out, at least kind of make it a question, make it like an actual decision who the main character has to choose to go with.
Yeah,
And
and one point I like to make is coming from the writing perspective, as someone who personally is working on writing a harem primarily series, a lot of the times you can get sucked into writing one particular character and they are your waifu or husbando. I mean, this is going to be the first instance of this, but look at Rent a Girlfriend. The mangaka specifically makes Chizuru in the image that he wants. That is his waifu, right? And
Yeah,
I'm, I mean this as seriously as possible. And I don't want to just continually diss Rent a Girlfriend, right?
I will.
That's well, you will. I don't want to just continually diss that series, but
We'll diss other series
it,
along the way.
exactly. It is a perfect example of only making one reasonable choice for the main character. However, I mean, a lot of the characters, are still likable, or I other people seem to like other characters, but as
The
far as the
characters that
harem
exist.
goes, I beg to differ. I don't personally believe there are likable characters in that series, but to be fair, you know, people do gravitate towards that series. So
It has like what 30 volumes out now or something.
yeah, I just checked my store the other day, 32 volumes plus spin-off series. So what makes it good doesn't necessarily make it successful, because there's a whole difference there, and that is a very successful series, despite, in my opinion, them not having a strong harem. Um, but coming from your perspective, would you like to give us an example of a series that has at least two strong romantic options for the main character?
So this is probably the one I'm going to come back to the most because it is one of the few I unironically enjoyed, which is quintessential quintuplets, which I still have a lot of problem with the series, but it does manage to do present itself as a harem properly because it actually develops its characters and their relationships, and they're somewhat interesting. So it's like, on some level, I'm interested to see where all of this goes. Like, how are they gonna grow together? Like, where are they all gonna like go essentially? And it
Yeah, another thing on Quince, this is a point you made earlier. Genuinely, if you're reading the series without spoilers, you don't know who's going to win.
yeah,
And I'm not going to get into spoilers as to who wins, but every option seems viable for a very long time.
yeah, like
And so I would completely agree with you. I think that that is a perfect series to show multiple romance interests for the main character.
mm,
And each one of them are strong choices,
yeah.
depending on your taste, of course. Yeah, if I had to choose a particular series with strong choices, um, honestly, this is a bit of a classic now. I mean, it's almost 10 years old when you really think about it. Personally, I love Nisakoi's harem.
Mm,
I think there's a colorful cast. I think
still need to watch
a
that.
lot of the girls are not. Yeah, you have Onodera, you have Chitoge, uh, Tachibana, Sugumi. These are wonderful, wonderful characters that, in the end, you're going to root for your girl, but they are likable characters, and you can see how they relate to the main character, Raku. So,
Hmm,
in my opinion, I think that's a great example of a series which provides you with at least two good options.
yeah. I watched like the first couple episodes and I stopped because I felt like the choice at the end was very obvious. So I guess
Yeah,
that's just a me
that
thing.
is a personally, I did read the manga, and while I do think they are well written characters, and I think you could, you know, make a viable option out of at least two of the girls, but in the end, it is a little bit more predictable than other series. You do kind of know which girl he's going to choose if you have any experience with harems.
Mm,
And spoiler alert, the girl you think is going to win will win. I'm not going to tell you who, but if you think this particular character at any point in time is going to win, she will.
I'm
And so that
smarter
is my
than a harem
spoiler for
series.
that series. Yeah, exactly. So, what point do you have? What's your first point as to what would make a harem good?
Make them funny.
Thank you.
So many
Thank you.
are just not funny. Like, I read the entire series and I laugh maybe once. I might chuckle a second time. But oh my god, the comedy, it's painful. It's really, really painful. I don't know what to do with myself sometimes.
Yeah, the comedy makes or breaks the series. When you really think about the genre, right? You're looking at 4 to 10 to 100 different characters trying to fall in love with one character. That sets you up for some of the greatest comedic things imaginable.
But it feels like we always just come back to like the same five jokes or so.
Yeah, there's the particular harem tropes that you're gonna see done. And when they're done well, they can be funny. But it's putting that unique twist, putting your own blend of comedy into it. That's the writer's standpoint once again,
Yeah.
is you have to put your type of comedy into the series. And this is something that I think is done really well in like Date Alive or 100 Girlfriends. These are both very funny series.
So I haven't seen Date Alive. I've read 100 Girlfriends, and the comedy is very hit or miss for me. Like,
Mm.
sometimes the comedy just is hilarious. I laugh out loud for a second. And then sometimes I just have to put it down for a second, walk away, and contemplate my life because it just shows me some of the most horrific things I have ever seen.
God, you're killing me. You can't be bashing that series. You're gonna kill me. Um,
It's
in all fairness, I think every harem has that moment where you kind of sit back
well,
and you realize what you're watching, and you're like,
well,
wait,
well,
this isn't funny anymore.
but well, with most harems, they kind of have like a low point that's here. 100 Girlfriends regularly goes down to here just for shits and giggles. Like,
Yeah, it doesn't care. It's like we're gonna do this. We want to do this. We'll do this. It was, let me preface with that is one of my all-time favorite series. So it is gonna be a fun discussion when we get really into that.
it's
But yeah,
at first I
um,
was indifferent towards it. Now it's kind of becoming one of my favorite series. I just kind of love to hate on it because what the fuck?
it is insane. I mean, you can see the poster right there. I got yeah. So,
Weeb.
and what would you like to? What are your examples of comedy done well in a harem,
Um, I
or
don't
specific
have any
episodes?
because very few harems have actually gone that funny with
Mm.
it, where I can like point it out as a supreme example of comedy. But it's like I kind of more want to bring up like kind of like I said, it's you have to see like the same five jokes or so. It's
Okay,
usually
what would be an example of one of those jokes?
sexual assault jokes.
Yeah, hot topic.
Yeah, then there's always some form of the MC being kind of a cringy incel. There's physical violence, which I like slapstick. They don't do slapstick that well most of the time.
Especially in an anime series. Slapstick is so reliant on timing, and a lot of harems just don't understand
Also, character interactions, like you can have a very funny character interaction, but if your characters aren't well defined or the relationship with each other isn't very well defined, you're kind of limited on how funny their interactions can be.
that. Yeah, and that goes back to our original points. Make decent characters,
Yeah,
and then maybe it'll be a different story.
because sometimes,
I want to go back to the sexual assault one. This is something that, in all seriousness, should be addressed. Why is this continually happening in harem and anime in general?
misogyny.
Misogyny, right? And this is just you know it's something that it's so not
Funny.
it's not funny. There's nothing around it. It's just
It's
not funny.
it's not funny. It's gross. Like the instant I see that, it's usually an indicator of how I'm going to see the rest of the series. Because okay, on a cast that is usually in most popular cases primarily depend on like women. If that's how you kind of see them, I know the writing standards aren't going to be that high.
If you treat your characters like objects, that's how your readers are going to treat those characters. And so when you make specific jokes oriented in the sexual assault category, you limit what can be a wonderful genre, and it is one of the hardest things to take in with the genre is, you know, usually once per series you get a joke like that, and
It's just
they're not funny. At the
they're
end of
not
the day, they're
funny.
just not funny.
They're gross. Like I always have certain like tropes or things when I see I instantly dock points from it. That is like one of the biggest ones. Like
It's a clear point to dock,
like
right?
I
I
can be
I, I
enjoying a
mean,
series that's a perfect 10 out of 10. Second something like that shows up, it immediately like loses 2 points. Like
now if it's handled correctly, not in the comedy sense, if it is like a dramatic series, which in a harem
they're not
probably not going to
dramatic.
happen, but if it is a dramatic series in which they address an issue of sexual assault and they call someone out on it, now that can be handled well.
That could be handled well. Could be done for good character development or interaction
It
stuff
could,
like that.
yeah, absolutely.
But
I
I'm
can't
sorry, harem.
draw to mind or memory a specific series that does that.
It's because most men really suck at writing sexual assault scenes.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's not particularly a strength that I've seen in writing. I think I just thought it. Courage the Cowardly Dog. There's
Oh,
a
I know what you're
wonderful,
talking about.
yeah, there's a wonderful two-part episode, I believe, on I think it's called The Mask, right?
Yeah, it's the one with the
If you
captain.
haven't seen that, you know, people at home, do your homework. That is a fantastic episode, and it does a really great job of handling assault. You can assume it to be sexual assault, but assault
It's
in a relationship, and it's handled so well.
mm,
Would you do you
it's
want to add on to that?
it's kind of a case where it's not really ever directly tackled, but it's all kind of in the subtext of everything, which does lend ingredients to it being handled well because it has a good story told, but then there's the subtext of everything that's going on the entire time. And
and and
if they were to handle it directly, I don't know how well they would have done.
when it's done in a series that can be as serious as Courage can be, it's great, and we love to see that representation. But when it's done in a harem series, where it's primarily done for comedic effect, it's
And they
not
act
funny.
like, hey, this is fine. We're cool. We're the cool kids.
It's not funny. Just stop.
Just
It's not hard to not write a joke. It's literally no work. You just don't put it in. Isn't
well,
that great?
the funny thing about whenever I see a scene like that is someone had to put a lot of work in to make sure that gets in.
Yeah,
Like the
exactly. There's
marketing
someone
has
on the
to
staff who writes that, and
it's like
it's
someone has
disgusting.
to write it, someone has to storyboard it, they have to do the line work in animation, they gotta do the Genga and the rough, gotta draw in all the frames, kind of like clean up the lines, color, composite, like someone has to compose music for those scenes.
Someone has to voice act those scenes when it becomes an animation production. So
So
this
at
is
least
this is what I'm saying. Something like that, just stop
just
it.
just stop. If you're thinking about writing your own, like on like Webtoon or some independent service or like something like that, just don't. Trust me,
Yeah,
take the extra 5 minutes to come up with an original joke, and people will love you for it.
yeah. I mean, if you are writing a comedy series and you believe that you have previous jokes that will make your audience laugh, you do not need to stoop to that level. You are a talented enough person to be able to change the joke to a different thing. Or if you want to tackle the subject matter, treat it with the respect it deserves. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Then what was your, I can't remember, what was your second point
The
on
se-
the five that you see all the time?
well, I had four main points. My second one was that just make your characters interesting.
Yeah, okay. We will talk about that.
My third one I did was pacing, which a,
Yeah.
a lot of like harem, but then just romance in general really struggle with the pacing of kind of the relationship and the story it takes place within. Now, like,
Yeah,
also,
pacing is really hard to do in harem.
yeah, well, like the approach I normally see is just kind of like a slow burn romance, usually with all the options. Which I'll just say I don't hate slow burn. A very effective slow burn can be very effective and cathartic,
Absolutely, I completely agree.
but there kind of exists a very thin line where it stops being a slow burn and just turns into you spinning your wheels.
And as far like to approach the pacing issue, you have to really think about how you're layering your series. Now, this can be something that is paced well in the manga, but is paced terribly in the animation. And that would be on the director and the studio.
Yeah,
Or vice versa. You could have a case in which a manga or an original comic is completely paced incorrectly, but is then fixed in the anime. And this is something where one of my only criticisms of quintessential quintuplets, since we talked positively on the show, I'm going to talk a little negatively on it, is the anime itself wasn't paced correctly, in my opinion. I think we missed a lot of the key scenes from uh, the manga,
yeah.
which would later get adapted in the Shaft Studios animation, which is the extra series. But I'd rather see that along with the series coming out.
It's like rather see it before the finale instead of just kind of like a little side thing afterwards.
It's like, oh, hey, these also happen, which they happened in the manga, so you can enjoy these. Now, I am happy that they got Shaft to do them.
Yeah,
That I'm okay with. They could have had Shaft do the whole series, and I would have been perfectly fine. But that's just me being a Shaft fanboy. Nice.
but
All
well, with
right.
pacing, it's more discussing the rate of kind of the development of each of the characters and the relationship because like
Mm.
so often it feels like you just kind of get to a certain point where you have certain like confessions, realizations, character moments, stuff like that. Then you just kind of stop for a while
Stalemated.
until you kind of get to like the big confession for a while, and that period is some of the most frustrating stuff I've read in basically anything because you're not doing anything. It's like,
Yeah, and talked about earlier, Nisekoi is a little bit of a culprit of that, where it's like you have a couple of major moments, and then it just kind of stagnates for about I think a whole volume, if I'm not mistaken. Like there's a whole volume where it kind of just doesn't really fluctuate. You don't get too much growth. You don't get too much of relationship repair or building, and it's a kind of a drag.
yeah,
And a lot of harems will do that,
yeah.
even the good ones,
And
like
it's
I
like
said.
stuff like that in small doses isn't bad. It's always nice to have like a fun little thing every once in a while. But when it stretches out for a while, it just really kind of drags the pace down, and you kind of have to wonder, like, what is the writer thinking? Like, do they think they're still building something, or do they realize, okay, once I get to this point, I'm not gonna be able to keep the series going for much longer, so I need to drag it out now while I still can.
Exactly. And there are a few issues that you run into, and that is, and I think layering your series so that you know the timeline and sequence of events, it excuse me, makes it so much easier. Like the harem I'm working on specifically, I set the timeline to, so I know when each key event is going to happen, and it's just piecing in the little pieces so that you don't have those pacing issues where it's like, okay, this character is not going to receive the adequate amount of development in the first season, so you have to try and you know,
Yeah,
pace it out. So, just I mean, this is coming from my teaching background too. Just pacing yourself, right? Just knowing where your characters are within a series. It does genuinely make a difference.
all right. Something else I pointed out that makes the pacing feel absolutely horrendous is when you have character development introduced, but then you kind of immediately backtrack it. Where it's like character A says, "Oh hey, revelation about myself or someone else," and then next chapter episode they act like it never happened. So it's like
Ah, yeah,
so it's
yeah,
like
okay.
So it's like you're spinning your wheels. You promise you finally gain traction. You're gonna go forward, but then you just start spinning your wheels again, and like people will notice that a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of makes you wonder, okay, why was that in there if you're just going to go back on it? Like,
Yeah,
go
like
forward with it. Trust me. If you're going to make a bold move, stick to it. People will like it.
it'll be
Like
better than the
one of my
alternative.
favorite scenes. Go ahead, go ahead.
It's like even if it doesn't work out fully, it's better than the alternative, which is just doing nothing.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're going to take the gamble to have the character say it, that means you trust the character to say it. The audience will follow. The audience will follow you as a writer. Just go ahead, put it in there. A great example of this. I just bashed it. Or I didn't bash it. I think I kind of talked a little bit negatively about it, but in quintessential quintuplets, one of the characters confesses very early on, and at first, the main character is like, "Oh, I didn't hear it." So it's a perfect opportunity for the main character and the specific girl to not progress any further, and you could just be like, "Oh, it was nothing." But instead, she doubles down on it. That's a great writer's move. It makes a great dynamic. It makes the character a lot more likable.
Yeah, it's like I think I know the moment you talk about. I was just very scared, like, oh, one of these again. Now we're gonna.
Yeah, I had that same reaction. I was like, "Oh, here we go. It's they're just gonna pull back on it, and it's gonna be a little tease." But no, she doubles down. It's great. So if you're watching Quint for the first time and you get to season 2, episodes 7 and 8, calm down.
There's a plan. They're cooking.
You're okay. Yeah, everything will be okay. The writer knows what he's doing.
Yeah. I guess part of that could just be like a fear of commitment on the writer's part because the status quo, it's safe, it's comfortable. You know how all your characters are supposed to act within it. You know what's supposed to happen. But when you have development and stuff like that, it messes with that status quo. Now you have to once again think and seriously consider how your characters are supposed to be in that situation.
Exactly. And this isn't a harem, but a series that does this very well is Toradora. Every commitment that happens within the series, they stick to it, and I love that. It's not a harem, but it
If you want the perfect
there's two girls that the main character is romantically is not a harem, but it is a romance series, and
with a
they
lot
do
of
that very
relationships in
well.
it, but
Yeah, it's not a harem. I'm gonna
thing.
very specific. Like, it is not
The perfect series that like represents the criticism of this is Rent a Girlfriend.
a harem.
I'm gonna bring it
We'll
up every
continue with the Rent a Girlfriend bash.
I am going to bring it up every opportunity I can. I hate this series so much.
There is absolutely, and I'm not caught up. I got very far with the series. I probably got too far with the series. I should have pulled back. I don't know why, but literally, they started to give character development to all of the characters. Finally, it was like chapter 270 or whatever. And then it just all gets pulled back. It's like, no, 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 no. We're just going to go back to the same thing. And just why?
It's like I
When series do what you do in less than 10 volumes, why do you need 32 volumes to just drag a story out?
it's like okay, so you mean to tell me that you made a series popular enough to get like over 30 volumes, 300 plus chapters, over 3 seasons at this point, and you choose to do nothing with it? Like I watched season 1 of the anime, didn't like it, but I was hoping, okay, maybe this is gonna go somewhere. Then I heard someone say there's like no progression. I said no. So I read some of the later chapters of the manga at that time. It's still the same bullshit. It's
Yeah, yeah, I mean, genuinely, if you only watched up to episode, when does Sumi get introduced? Episode 8?
around the middle point, yeah.
Yeah, it's like episode 8, let's say, of the first season. You get up to episode 8. You can go right now, watch season 3, and you'll miss nothing. You might have like two questions. And if you did that with any other harem, you'd be so confused.
Because they at
But with
least progress
there's no
something.
progression.
Even
Yeah, there's no progression.
it's I hate that series so much. It represents so many things I hate about like the industry and art and stuff like that. But another time.
Another time. Now, to your point, it is very popular. And I think one important thing with harems is making it popular. And I think the one of the easiest way, and this is a positive on Rent a Girlfriend's side, as well as most harem side, is you make your characters look great. This is a
Yeah,
visual media, right?
that is like the one positive I will give Rent a Girlfriend. The character designs and the art, at least in the manga, they do look nice. They are well
Yeah,
done.
even the panels, which granted a two-page spread. I'm not going to get into that, but even the panels, which
I
depict some weird things,
I
are well drawn,
I
and
thought
the characters all look great.
I thought it was an edit the first time I saw like some sort of like meme edit online, but then I saw someone post
It's
a
not
picture of the volume and that's real. That's
just if you have if you're in the Rent a Girlfriend hating community or you're in the Rent a Girlfriend enjoying community, you know what we're talking about. If you're not, just stay away.
just do yourself a favor. Just watch something good. Watch something
Yeah, just
that'll contribute to your life, not the
yeah, dude.
Taco Bell of anime.
Or if you like the characters in Rent a Girlfriend just because you think the girls look pretty, or you think, heaven forbid, Kazuya looks pretty, just buy your little body pillow or buy a figure and call it a day. You don't need to read the series. You will gain more from purchasing that figure than you will from reading at least 5 volumes because you can at least imagine a better development for that character than what actually happened.
Genuinely writing fanfic for the series, you would contribute more than the author does.
You know, honestly, I have read one Rent a Girlfriend fanfic.
How was it?
It was better than the series. I like I'm not I'm not gonna really disclose too much of this fanfic and what happened inside this fanfic, but
That kind of fanfic.
the story progression was better than Rent a Girlfriend's. Even Rent's a really shy girlfriend, the spin-off series, which is primarily just Sumi, is still not good because there's no progression.
It's just the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again.
But like I said, it looks great, and a lot of harem, especially the ones that are popular, look fantastic.
I
I mean,
will.
Kurumi Tokusaki is one of the most well-known characters in anime, and it's because she has a wonderful design. Who actually watches Data Live besides me and like the 10 other Data Live fans?
I I just know they're doing like season 6 soon or something, and I am very
Yeah,
confused
there's
about
like
it.
24 light novels. I've read like 10 of them.
Yeah. So I will say a lot of harems do have good character designs. I will I will heavily criticize the sexualization of a lot of them.
Yeah, but it in the end, you know the old saying, sex sells.
There's
In order to make something popular. Now,
other ways
when
people
when
can be
they're
sexy.
18 or above, fair game, right?
Yeah,
Like those are legal care do what you get, but like most of the time harems are set in high school.
and it makes it so uncomfortable.
It's what did I say about the sexual assault? Just don't do it.
Just don't.
Or make your characters 18.
It's
I
like
don't know why it's so hard
if you're
to make characters 18.
if you're that desperate for a school setting, college is a fun place. I mean, not for me, but for most people, from what I hear, is a
For,
fun
yeah,
place.
for a lot of people, college can be great, or they can be adults.
They could be adults. They could be working jobs or doing something. There's
Not hard,
it's
not
as I've
hard.
said
My
with
series, all adults,
as
not hard.
as I've said for literally every other point I made. Just take 2 seconds to think about something new. It is.
It's
You
two
may
seconds.
struggle a bit, but it'll make it so worth it.
It will. It genuinely will. And when it comes to character designs, most harems they have such wonderful hair.
I do like the hair. The hair is nice.
Experiment. Do something we haven't seen before.
There's more than like two different body types for women also that you can experiment and have fun with.
Yes, look at 100 Girlfriends. They have so far everyone that you can think of,
Yeah. I think in the manga
including and not limited to cat girls.
that in any other
I don't
series
know. It's
that would
something new.
in any other series that would have broken me, but considering the stuff that came before it, I'm like,
Yeah.
whatever.
You're like, okay, what's next?
Genuinely, the only thing in 100 Girlfriends that could surprise me anymore is if Rentaro gets a boyfriend. like,
I'm kind of hoping
I hope so. Probably not going to happen, but that's nothing else is going to surprise me anymore except for that.
it would actually surprise me. I mean, as much as I would love to see that happen, it would surprise me I would be fine with multiple boys.
Yeah, since
I think Rentaro would be fine with
like yeah, I could see him being fine with it, but would the author be fine with it or the editors?
That's another story. Unfortunately, that's something that is going to be out of our hands.
Yeah, cowards.
Hmm. And so, from your point of view, what would you say is the best looking harem, or a particular one character that you think is the best looking character in a harem?
Hmm.
Not the most attractive, or not like just as far as pure design. What is the best? It can be if they have special abilities, or if they just really, you know, do something unique with their kind of drawing or their style. What would you say is your
Hmm. I hate to give any credit to it, but Run to Girlfriend does look great at times. Like I will shit
favorite? It
on
does.
the I will shit on the period double page spread till the day I die, but it does look good. then
Yeah, I agree.
then I was surprised by the 100 Girlfriends anime that it looked pretty decent. Like it wasn't like best thing I'd ever seen, but the animation was surprisingly consistent, fluid, colorful, bright. Like I don't know.
Yeah, it's Bilberry. They have experience with
Yeah.
doing harems and
Then
making them look pretty.
the 2 to 3 episodes I watched of the Nisekoi anime by Shaft, but you know that's
It's
Shaft. I
Shaft.
can't exactly hold it to most people's standards.
Yeah, that is a step above. And speaking of Shaft, my choice for just best harem design, I absolutely love Chitoge's design.
The,
Her hair being so free flowing, her ribbon, I think that's beautiful. I think that's a wonderful design. And whether or not you like the series, I think everyone can agree that even in the manga, she is a wonderful designed character. She stands out. You know her right away.
mm-hmm.
If I was to say the best, I might have to give it to Kurumi Tokisaki from Data Live. Like I said, she just stands out. Anyone knows her,
I've
the
seen her in a lot
character.
of places, even though I've
Exactly. She
not
is
watched a
just
single
the
episode.
exactly. She is the harem girl, like the queen almost. Like everyone knows her.
Yeah.
People who have never seen the series don't care about the series know her. So, and if I was to say objective best, I think she might have it, but personal favorite is definitely Chitoge's
Mm-hmm.
design.
Yeah. So one last point I'd want to bring up because I don't know how much longer we got is
No, we got time.
so a lot of the stuff we have been talking about could just be applied to like romance series in general, just like with the comedy characters, stuff like that. But with harems in particular, you do have a very unique possibility with them that you don't have with a lot of other romance series, and that's kind of exploring relationships with a person when they kind of are like confronted with multiple options because every relationship you form with a person is different based on your own experiences, where you come from, like how you view things, your personalities. And often in most romance series, you're focusing on one, that specific dynamic, that specific back and forth. But with a harem, the character is presented with multiple at once, and they usually have to make an option on what is the best for them at that time. But so many romance they or harems, they don't consider that possibility because they already know who they want usually from the start.
Yeah, it's important because when you write a harem series, don't insert yourself as the main character because you're going to give yourself what you want. Give the character what he needs rather than what he wants.
Yeah,
Perfect example of this, in my opinion, and this is going to get me some flack, is quintessential quintuplets.
we
In
should.
the end, Futuro gets the girl that he
Yeah,
needs rather than the girl that everyone wants him.
yeah. We should title the episode of this video the quintessential quintuplets ending isn't bad. You're all just idiots.
We totally could. And personally, it is one of the few endings that I will
Yeah,
die on. Like that is a cross I would die on. I think that is a great ending. And let me preface, I am not like the girl who wins is not my best girl, in my opinion. Like just
yeah.
not my best
But like, it really shows that like, again, there was a moment, and like we said earlier, each girl was a viable option at some point or another.
girl. Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
But you get to the end and you think about the main character and their specific relationship, and you have to think, oh, that makes sense. And again,
You just let the gears turn.
and again, with harems, you can have your character make a real decision about themselves and about other people. Just explore what that decision means for them.
Yeah. Sorry. And yes, and take time to explore those options. Let your character think about those options because then we can, show, don't tell. Let us see what the character is thinking about when he's thinking about these girls or
Like,
when she's thinking about these boys.
like so often the main character is just blank slate, nothing going on. But like, even if the main character is supposed to be just like a vessel for like the audience to jump into, you don't want to jump into an empty person because what does that reflect about you?
Exactly. If you're just if it's just a shell, it's not a character.
Yeah,
Like I said earlier, if you treat your character like an object just so you can reach that goal, your audience is going to treat that character like an object. Now that leads me to the most important, in my opinion, the most important point that needs to be made on how to make a harem good. Make a likable protagonist. If we don't want the protagonist to pick one of the girls because we don't like the protagonist, it doesn't matter at all.
rent
The
a
whole
girlfriend.
series, Rent a Girlfriend, the whole series is heavily reliant on the character that we will see probably every episode of the anime and for most of the chapters throughout the series.
Yeah, it's. I literally just said this. The main character is often forgotten, the most underdeveloped, and usually, at best, the most boring to watch, and usually at worst, it's normally the worst, the most annoying one to watch.
The most forget I'm looking at a list of harems and I've seen a lot of them. I don't remember the main characters' names for half of them. That is a bad sign. And like I've completed One Piece and I can remember characters from like chapter 300, yet I can't remember a character which I've watched their whole freaking season.
Yeah, and it's like
A great example of this is the Asterisk War. I think his name is it Ayato?
I
I
haven't
could
seen it.
be
I don't
mistaken,
know.
but that series has so little an impact on me, and I think just because the main character has such a little impact on me, and I'm not gonna say it's bad because it has no impact on me. It's not good. It's not bad. I'm indifferent to it, just like I am to the main character.
And your main character is supposed to be the person where you're kind of walking through the series with them. You're experiencing everything with them. Like what you and the main character may know or realize are different, but the main character, this is supposed to be their story you're following, but if they don't have a story because they don't have a character, you're not really watching anything.
And just like all the romance interests, your main character should go through progressions. You shouldn't have the same character at the start of the series that you do at the end of the series. There should be at least clear growth from the start to the end for your protagonist. Rent the Girlfriend.
Say it out loud. We've already bashed it.
Yeah, we've already bashed it enough.
Kazuya
The
fucking sucks.
the greatest downfall of Rent a Girlfriend is the main character. I think the writing could be passed if we genuinely cared about the main character. And if you out there, my our lovely audience, believe that Kazuya is a great protagonist, I hate to break it to you, but you might be reading the wrong series.
Do I feel like you said the polite version? Can I say the mean version?
Yeah, I'll be good cop, you can be bad cop.
Get the fuck out. I do not want to talk to you.
Yeah, in short, I don't think we're watching the same series, and I don't want to have a discussion about that series with you.
Like,
And if you think that, oh, Kazuya, he's just like me, let me borrow from another podcast and say, that makes you a terrible person. So please do not aspire to be Kazuya.
it's like,
Okay?
and I am fine with the main character being an awful person, but one, the series needs
Are
to
you?
realize they're an awful person.
Okay, I see where you're going.
It's
Yeah.
like you either need that or you need the character to actually grow from being an awful person. You can't have them just be an awful person, not realize they're an awful person, and never become more than an awful person.
Great. And a good example of that is actually Data Life because we're rooting for Shido for most of the time. It is a lot. It's kind of like this is going to be a weird comparison, but it's kind of like Gintama where it's like you can't really get into it expecting it to be a super serious all the time series because it is a very light-hearted series at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But the main character goes through progressions and growth. He makes choices in the end that are important, that are outside of just the romance element of the series.
But yeah, just think about your characters and your story
Exactly.
and your humor and what you're trying to say. Say something. That's. I feel like I'm giving a writing 101 class for this.
Well, that was my goal, was to approach this from a lot of different perspectives, especially considering in this genre in particular, this is something I'm working on writing. I'm, like I said before, actively trying to write a harem, and it's hard. Like I don't want to discredit any form of writing is difficult because it takes a lot to come up with
Yeah.
something that you feel is unique, original, and you like.
Yeah. And
And
I'll say it,
yeah, it's
I've
tough.
bashed on a lot of stuff here, but anything that has come out has required a certain level of work to exist, and I will praise it for putting in that certain level of work. There are some who put in more, there are some who kind of put in the bare minimum, but still, it takes a lot of work, and that should never be discredited.
Yeah. And if you out there want to make your own series, especially a harem series, please put in a lot of work for it and or try your best because people will see that. Your readers, your viewers, your audience will see the work that you put in. It's worth it. It's so worth it.
Because, like, if you're already going to put in that certain level of work for it to exist, put in a bit more so it's become something that people remember, it can have an effect on people. Like, it's like making anything is difficult. So why not? It's like if you're gonna do something difficult, make something good out of it.
Yeah. Or just try your best,
Try
right?
your best.
Try your best. That's all I'm going to ask. And one day, who knows? Anyone could cook, right?
Yeah,
Anyone can cook.
it's like try your best, and like I always say, always think about what you're trying to make. You don't have to think about it for all that long. You don't need to think about the most deepest philosophical thing ever, but try to think about what you want to make, because that'll go a lot further than you think it would.
In the context of a harem, remember, it's a harem. Have fun with it. It's supposed to, you're supposed to enjoy writing this series. You're supposed to make your, I always said that like it's better than a sports tournament because you can almost bet on which girl is going to win. You're like, oh, this girl is going to win, or you can almost bet like, oh, this character he's going to win, and that's fun, right? Especially when a series is ongoing and you can have genuine debates with people on why you think a specific character should win.
Yeah. Anything more you'd like to
So,
say?
go ahead.
No, I was just asking if you have anything more you wanted to say.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you actually. If we had to summarize like our general tips on what makes harems good, let's maybe say five things. Five things. What we've come up with that we would say that harems are good. What would be the first one?
Like
Most
they're
important.
already good at, or things that they could be good at.
What what makes harems good? Like five summary, right?
The first thing would definitely be character relationships, because all stories are built on character relationships, but when you have so many focused in a singular thing, you really could do a lot with that and say stuff about that. Two, the situation, like the story itself, is already naturally pretty comedic, so it does lend itself to comedy when you're putting in effort on the comedy.
I agree. I would say third, uh, generally when you have to make unique characters so that the audience remembers which is which, then the characters look great. You're making these great, unique designs. Character style is fantastic in Harem.
Sometimes.
Yeah, like I said, you put in the work, you'll get the result. So it shows. But in general, the genre, especially the All Stars, have wonderful designs. I can't go into any um, game center without seeing one of the quintuplets or um, as there's a Kurumi every other day in the game centers. Like it's just they're wonderful designs. I think number four, likable main characters. When they're likable, the whole series works.
Or at least
Like
the
even a
series
series
go.
as insane as 100 Girlfriends, because we can genuinely root for or at least laugh at the main character,
We need to have a
we
discussion
can
about
watch the
Rentaro
series.
at some point, because I have a lot of thoughts about him.
Oh, absolutely. We don't worry, don't worry. We will be covering in full that series when we get to that turn. And the number five, they're creative. Harems can be any genre if you really think about
They
it.
could.
Date Alive is like a
Like, isn't it like a
mecha
sci-fi?
fantasy sci-fi. Yeah, it's kind of like a couple of things. And then Nisekoi is just pure harem comedy. I'm particularly working on a harem drama, but it's like a not a rom com, more of the drama element. I'm trying to tackle the darker elements of a harem. And I think a series that tried that was the Astro Spore, if I could remember what happens in that series.
You remember an attempt, nothing else.
I remember an attempt. It attempted to be very dark at some points. Um, it looked good. Like I said, it looked good, so that is a positive. So we have the five main things that make a harem good. What would you say is your favorite harem? And provide examples as to why you believe that is your favorite.
So, like I said, I had two I unironically enjoyed. One of them was quintessential quintuplets. like I said, it felt like the only one that actually took advantage of what it was and tried to play into that to make the best story possible. I still have a lot of criticisms about it. Like, some moments felt derivative. There's some fan service moments I didn't really care for, and like it wasn't perfect, but I liked it. Then the only other one I unironically enjoyed was something called My Monster Secret, which,
My Monster Secret.
or actually I am. I keep seeing it go back and forth between the two. I read it spring break my last year in college, I think, and it did the first thing of actually being funny. There's
Okay.
a lot of jokes in it that I actually laughed at because they actually put effort into them. There was a lot of derivative stuff, but less than usual. There was
Hey, we'll take it.
then again, there was a lot of thought put into their character development and their relationships. They were constantly changing and growing, and I enjoyed seeing where they were going. I know it's not the most popular series the anime had was kind of meh, but like if you do enjoy harems, My Monster Secret does things pretty well. Like again, not perfect, but it does take advantage of what it is, and it has fun with it, and it does have some serious moments to it that I do appreciate.
I'll have to give it a nice little. You read it or
I read it.
watched it? Okay,
I
I'll
read
have
it.
to
The
give it a read
anime. I watched like an episode of it, and I did not like it.
then. Nah, no, that can happen on occasion too. I think, yeah, I to your point, I do believe I've seen and read a lot of times quintessential quintuplets, and it is, yeah, it is a great example of when a harem is done right, it is done very well. Now, personally, I won't get into too much. I think my favorite is absolutely 100 Girlfriends. As much as I can poke fun at it, it is, in my opinion, just my favorite. It takes advantage of the fact that it is as absurd as it sounds. There are going to be 100 girlfriends,
I think in the
and
manga we're approaching almost 30 now.
yeah, we're at like 29, I think, or 28. So something crazy. Which 28 main characters. It's insane, and the series is just as insane as it sounds, and that's once again that you might think that's a drawback. No, I personally believe that's a great thing because it recognizes that it's insane, and it's written as if it was insane.
It's
It,
whether or not it's your own flavor of insane or not.
yeah, it's like watching a well done Monty Python skit. Like it has to be smart in order for it to work because it's so absurd.
It's like it has to be smart on some level. It's just
It's not everyone's cup of tea.
yeah.
Don't get harems in general are not everyone's cup of tea, and I'd encourage you to at least read a good one. So if I was to recommend one, and I won't say quintessential quintuplets, is that something that you said? Uh, Personally, I would recommend Nisekoi, and it's something I think I recommended to you, if I'm not mistaken, and
You have.
didn't work out, but that's fine. You know, we each have our own personal tastes, and so between the two, I would say Quint is a great start, especially if you're new to the genre. And if you want to go for a classic, one that particularly is generally well received, I would say, yeah, definitely go for Nisekoi. It's a great story. It also has my favorite telling of Romeo and Juliet,
Hmm.
which it's the finale of season one of the anime, and it's pretty well done. I think that alone, if you like Shakespeare, you'll see a very interesting take on Shakespeare. It is certainly not Shakespeare. So yeah, we have our recommendations, and but I'd like to hear from you guys. Tell us what you think is good about harems or what you think is bad about harems. If you are a Wrench Girlfriend defender, defend it. We'd love to argue.
You love to argue. I am not talking to that person.
I'd love to weigh your criticisms and your appraise of it and consider my own opinions, and you will have to hear from them. Mahaha. Or if you want to say something that you like about a different harem or something that you think is done well in a harem in an anime. This is, going to be an open discussion. You are welcome to leave as many comments as you possibly can, and I'd love to try and get back and respond.
But yeah,
Yeah. Did you have any closing statements with the whole uh, topic as a general?
just kind of with anything, think about why the series is the way it is. Like, if you think about your story and realize it doesn't need to be a harem, don't force it to become a harem. But if you have a
Not.
series that needs to be a harem, do not be afraid to pursue that.
Yeah. Seriously, enjoy what you. And I think that is going to conclude our discussion on what makes a harem good.
Yeah,
And we might come back to this topic uh, later if we feel like we've missed something that we want to talk about.
yeah.
Or in a subtopic in a future episode, it might be something that says what is the best harem girl, and we might have to make an argument as to why. I mean, these are there are numerous possibilities for future episodes that could still be related to harem. So if you are a harem enjoyer, just know that this is just the first of many discussions.
And if you're a harem hater like I am, we are also going to be having a bit of fun.
Everyone fits in well. We are looking forward to our next discussion,
Yes.
which will be a full series review on Mob Psycho.
I have like almost 7 pages of notes, 7 pages of notes written down for it.
Yes, as do I. And we are heavily anticipating this series. So if you are going to watch, I do recommend at least reading the manga or watching the anime. I recommend watching the anime
Yeah.
as someone who watched the anime first, then caught up to the manga. I do recommend watching the anime,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you did it in reverse order. So what is
I
your take on
watched the anime up to season 2, finished the manga, then I read season 3. I still haven't gone through the rest of the manga. It is good in its own way. Don't let the art fool you. Like, the art does work for the series.
that? Yeah, and we are going to be talking in full about Mob Psycho. So please tune in to our next episode, as well as we'll be covering a secret topic, which uh, tonight we were supposed to do a few things, but we had a few delays and a lot of traveling that I had to do today. So unfortunately, we were a bit behind.
Yeah.
Uh, so we will be anticipating our next episode to release sooner rather than later to try and get out that Mob Psycho review, as well as our next topic, which we will release in a mystery surprise.
Ooh.
You won't know until you get there. So please tune in so you can see what the mystery topic will be, as well as listen to our full discussion on Mob Psycho. NoTea, any closing statements?
Um, Hope you enjoyed this, and see you next time.
Yeah, please tune in next time.